All right, so let's go on a tour of Greece. I've been to Greece two different times, and I wish that I could take all of you with me in person. But since we can't, let's go on a picture tour through my trips and experiences and stories of Greece. So, first of all, where is Greece? Well, we are in the center of the United States, and we are going to travel all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, all the way across Europe. Man, I can't remember how long this plane ride is. We're probably going to land in Germany. We're going to be in the air for over 10 hours. It's going to be quite a long time. Hope you sleep on the plane because we're going to hit the ground running as soon as we land in Greece. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look out the window as you have been on the airplane for hours and hours. Maybe you haven't slept because you're so excited. You look out the airplane window and this is what you see. Now, these pictures are a little grainy because they're from about 9 years ago, 10 years ago. But you see these looks like mountains sprinkled out into the ocean. It is a beautiful sight to see. We're excited to land in Greece. All right, so we've arrived, and the first place we're going to go is the Parthenon. Now, you might want to go to bed, but that's not allowed because it's daytime in Greece, and we have got some sightseeing to do. So, the Parthenon, the temple to who? Which Greek goddess? Athena is the answer. So, the Parthenon, I mean, this is the sight to see when you're in Greece. It's like when you go to Paris, everyone wants to see the Eiffel Tower. When you go to Greece in Athens, you want to see the Parthenon. Now, I should have told you, make sure you have on good walking shoes, hiking shoes, tennis shoes. Don't be silly to wear flip-flops like some of the students did on the trip where we took them to, because you're going to be hiking up a tall hill to this big, beautiful temple. This is what remains today. Now, in this picture, you can see some scaffolding. They're always doing work to maintain the Parthenon to make sure it's in good shape. But when the ancient Greeks built this building, it was flawless. And they even believe that inside was a floor to ceiling statue of Athena. And in ancient times, there would have been colorful pictures painted on the top. But over the years, of course, that has worn off. Here is a view looking up at the top. So there's a word called the Acropolis. The word Acropolis means a high hill. And each city-state of Greece, because there's lots of hills in Greece, each city-state built their city on top of a high hill. The highest hill in the region, then you would put your most important buildings on top of that. So your temples to the gods, government buildings would be up on the top of the highest hill, which you could use as a fortress to protect you during times of invasion. So in the city of Athens, the Acropolis is right here, and you have to hike up a really steep incline to get to the top to see all of the temples. All right. Wow, this is a long time ago. I look so young, and so does my husband. He looks like a student. So I think this was like in 2009. 2009. A picture of us outside the Parthenon in 2009. And then we went back again in 2011. Now, this time my husband taught history at Olathe East. So both of these trips, we took high school students on these trips with us. And so that's what you see here. These are students who are all grown up now and have careers. But here we are outside the Parthenon. Now, once you're up to the top of the Acropolis, there's many more temples as well. This is another temple to Athena Nike, I believe is what this one is. But if you look at the pillars, even the columns are statues of the goddess. Pretty incredible. And you can see, look at the background. Look how high up you are on this hill compared to the city down below. Okay, now this is a view. Let's say you're walking about halfway up the Acropolis. If you pause and look over the ledge, you'll see this site. This is called an amphitheater. So in ancient Greece, they didn't have Netflix or social media or any kind of technology for entertainment. Their entertainment was theater, musical productions, plays, performances. And they built these outdoor theaters on the hillsides where the seating was on the hillside like a stadium, and the performers would be down on the center. And the acoustics, which means the way the sound traveled, was perfect. The people did not need microphones because their voices bounced off the stone seating perfectly. Now in Athens, only the men were allowed to play the roles of any of the actors or actresses. So the men often had to play a female's role. For a female part, the men had to play that lead. But this was a popular form of entertainment across Athens, and outside of the on the Acropolis, on your way up to the top of the Acropolis, at the bottom is this amphitheater, and there's even still some famous performers that perform here today. Okay, it's about time to go back to the hotel and relax for the day. So here's a look. This is a picture from the rooftop of our hotel at the time. Now, when we took trips overseas with students, we did not get to stay in the nicest of hotels. Okay. They weren't the best, but when I look at this, like the way Athens looked to me, like I love this. I love getting to see the archaeological sites, but the city in general was kind of run down and dirty. The buildings are really close together. This picture reminds me of like a scene from a movie where someone is chasing another person and they're hopping across building to building, leaping over buildings. The buildings are just that close together. It really kind of almost has a Middle Eastern feel to it. It's still a really great place, but you can see the top of the other high hills from our hotel. Now, when we were here at the time, 2009, and maybe this was from 2011, Greece was facing some economic problems. There were a lot of protesting. The citizens were upset. They were heavily taxed by the government. There were signs of graffiti outside the government buildings. All the taxis went on a boycott, so they purposefully blocked the path to the airport. Now, thankfully, we weren't going to the airport that day, but there were many, many tourists and people who were upset that they couldn't get to the airport. This was a way for the people of Athens to stand up and say, hey, for the government, if they aren't going to, listen and hear their voices when it comes to taxes, then they were going to cause a headache for the local government. And even after we left shortly, there were some like small riots that broke out. Okay, we're going to leave the city of Athens. So let's say you've gone back to the hotel. You've had a good night's rest. Now we are going to get on a tour bus. And I hope you don't sleep during this tour bus ride because there's some beautiful places to see. We're going to travel up central Greece to a sacred ancient site called Delphi or Delphi. This is a picture out the bus window. Now, if you get motion sickness on a bus ride, that could happen here because you're weaving your way through these steep mountain villages. And this is a little town on the way to Delphi. Beautiful little homes sprinkled across the hillsides. When you think of the geography of Greece, you think of how rocky and mountainous it is. And of course, those olive trees growing all over the hillsides. So when you arrive in Delphi, you are going to make a very steep climb up to the top. I mean, really, you're climbing everywhere in Greece. Lots of climbing and hiking up steep hills. So this is the site called Delphi. It was a place where ancient people would come to seek wisdom. Excuse me, I'm very congested today. They wanted to come to seek wisdom from somebody called the Oracle. Now, that sounds like some creepy character out of a movie, but it was basically a fortune teller who lived in this temple to Apollo. Apollo, Greek god of music, son of Zeus. Okay. And deep inside this temple was this oracle. And people from all over Greece would come here to ask the oracle questions. They also had like a mini Olympic Games here at this place, but it was a sacred site to visit. It was really, really hard to get to. They even say Alexander the Great visited this site because he wanted to seek wisdom on upcoming battles. But I'll tell you more about the oracle. Here's another picture of the temple of Apollo. This is a grand amphitheater. Look how huge this is and how fitting that this amphitheater is right outside the temple to Apollo at the bottom. Now, that temple to Apollo would once have been huge, big columns, right? But inside was the oracle, right? So the oracle was a woman from like this like family line of fortune tellers, you could say. And this looks like a cauldron. It's like this is the oracle sat inside of this cauldron that was deep inside the temple. And below that was like this cracks in the ground where this like sulfur type of gas seeped up from the earth into this chamber inside the temple. And the smoke or the fumes from the earth's crust or wherever it was coming from sort of drugged the oracle and made her speak in this kind of weird language. And people would ask her, or they would ask a question to the priest would go to the oracle, and the oracle would go back to the person who asked the question and give them the answer. But the thing about the oracle was they always spoke in riddles, and they were never wrong. So there's a story of a great leader who goes to the temple of Apollo and asks, they say, I'm about to fight an enemy in a great battle. Will I win? And the oracle's response is, a great kingdom will fall. And so the person who asked the question thought, awesome, I'm going to win. But they go home and they lost because it was the great kingdom of the person who asked the oracle who fell, not the opposing team. So in other words, it's a win-win for the oracle, but still, people wanted to visit the oracle to seek wisdom. But it does not look like a very comfortable seat. So if you climb to the very, very steep top of the mountain here in Delphi, you'll get to a sanctuary where the Pythian games were. Pythia was the name of the oracle. And so they had these miniature Olympic games to honor her. And then even once the Romans took over Greece, they continued to have some like Olympic games here. But this is my husband. I just being silly years ago doing a little yoga. Okay, now after you've been doing a lot of hiking, you're going to be hungry because Greece has wonderful food. But I hope you're not too much of a picky eater because there's not chicken nuggets and ketchup here. Okay, and not even a ton of McDonald's. We're going to eat some traditional Greek food. Now, you learned that in Greece, they're famous for growing olives, and the olive trees are scattered all over the hillside in Greece. And the Greeks used olive oil as a valuable trade item, and it's still used today. So I took this picture when I was sitting at a picnic table eating a delicious lunch of Greek food after I had been to Delphi. But here's what olive trees look like. They have this silvery green look to them. But if you pick an olive off an olive tree, it will not taste like an olive out of a jar. It will taste very bitter, hasn't been soaked in any vinegar, oil, or spices. So I would not recommend doing that. Here is this was my meal, okay, after hiking up Delphi. So this on the right side looks like a meatball. It's like a fried ball of lamb meat and rice and seasoning, very flavorful. These in the bottom center are called domadas. They're like grape leaves stuffed with meat, and they have like a lemon sauce on top. To the far left, it looks like it's basically a fried cheese stick. Up in the top center is something called moussaka. It's like flaky pastry dough with meat and eggplant layered inside of it. It's like a casserole. And the white stuff is like called tzatziki. It's kind of like sour cream. Very flavorful, but some students might not be adventurous enough to try it. Here is dinner on another night. Very simple version. You can see the dalmatis, the grape leaves filled with ground lamb. The moussaka looks a little different. They had basically a Greek quesadilla and some sausage. Okay, now the best part of this trip is we are going to take a cruise. Imagine how fun this would have been with all of your friends, your high school friends, getting to go on a cruise ship together. That's what we got to do. So the little thumbtacks are going to show you where all the places we're going to cruise to. Our first stop is a beautiful island called Mykonos. Mykonos is known for these windmills. And in the islands of Greece, you see all these beautiful whitewashed homes. They have these blue shutters to them. Of course, the colors of the Greek flag are blue and white. But when you contrast that with these white homes against the beautiful blue ocean, it's so amazing. Another reason they paint their homes white is because it reflects the sun, and the breeze off the ocean blows in through the windows. They don't need air conditioning here. Here's another look at Mykonos. Beautiful place. Mykonos in medieval times, it's known for like the island of windmills. So it's a super, super windy place. So windy, like my cheeks were flopping in the air. I was on the cruise ship sailing into this island. But they would use these windmills for energy. But there's many still there today. A lot of people want their picture by the windmill. Next up, let's go to the island of Patmos. This is where the Apostle John from the Christian Bible, he was imprisoned here by Rome. And I got to climb up another steep, steep hill. And I got to go into like this grotto, this place inside a cave where John supposedly wrote the book of Revelation, the last book in the Christian Bible. And You can peek out the window of sort of like his jail cell, and you could see out over this beautiful place. And again, you see these mountains look like they're popping up out of the ocean. Patmos is a very, very beautiful place. And there's a monastery at the top, if you can get to the top of the hill. Many of our students had flip-flops on, and they were sliding all over the loose gravel on their way up to the hill. Okay, we're going to visit another place. This place is actually in the country of Turkey, which is part of Asia Minor. It's the only Asian country I've got to visit. Ephesus is the city where the book of Ephesians, where the Apostle Paul wrote a book to people living in the city of Ephesus, and those people were called Ephesians, which is also in the New Testament of the Christian Bible. The ruins of this city were buried underground and then have been excavated now over many years. Absolutely incredible place to visit. This is a really famous place in Ephesus, the Library of Celsus. It was a library constructed in 117 AD, and the Romans helped build this. It was a beautiful, beautiful place. When you're here, you see a lot of evidence that Rome once ruled this place. You see these pictures of these Roman helmets. And here I am. Oh gosh, my hair was so short back then. You can see the architecture on this building is so incredible. Here's yet again another Greek amphitheater in the city of Ephesus, and still performances happen here today. Oh, and this is a fun stop. Anyone need to use the bathroom? Here you go. You just sit next to your friends. Okay, no, not in real life, but in ancient times, this was a public bathroom. The public toilets were a big deal. You can even see around the seat. You can see it looks kind of worn and sat on. In front of the toilets is this like gutter where clean water would have been. And you can see where the hole is on the concrete. There's like basically, so there would be like a servant inside of the toilet house with a stick with a sponge on it. And this was a male bathroom, where they would sit on the toilet with their togas. And when they were ready to clean themselves, the servant would hand them a stick with the sponge on it, and they would stick the sponge through the opening at the bottom of this concrete, and then hand the stick to the next person. No big deal. Okay, probably didn't do that, but who knows? Their standards for hygiene were quite different than ours today, but they would wash off. I know they'd wash a sponge in the little gutter in front of there. So, look, public toilets in Greece and Rome, look it up. All right, next up, let's go to the Greek island of Rhodes. This one doesn't have so much of ancient history, more of medieval history with knights and this big castle wall here. It was a fun place. We found some little baby kittens that were hanging out on the side of the castle wall. It was kind of a beach day, so that was what we did in the city, the island of Rhodes. But the last place we have to visit is the most beautiful place on earth. Famous place called Santorini. You can look it up on Google Images, and most of the images look just like this. This was taken 10 years ago with an old camera. It's so beautiful. It's built on top of this. Basically, it was a volcano that exploded, and the crater collapsed down. It's now filled with ocean water, and the rim of what was once a volcano is Santorini. There's no actual wells or any water here. All water has to be brought in. So it's an interesting place. Agriculture is really hard. There's some rocky here. It's really just a tourist place to visit. But beautiful white homes, blue shutters. Quite a beautiful place to visit. So here's my husband and I back in 2008. You can see a cruise ship out in the distance. The area where the cruise ship is sitting is called the Caldera. And the cruise ships have to park way far away. And then you take a little boat over to the side to get to the top of the island. Here we are in the same spot in 2011. And when we were there, it was super hot. I actually have a friend who was there this past summer, and she said it was just scorching hot. So if you're going to go there in the summer, you are going to broil. And it feels like there's no breeze here compared to Mykonos. It's just so hot in Santorini. But Greek Orthodox Christian churches are very popular here. So you see these blue domed roofs. This picture is this is classic Santorini. Just ignore that. All right, this is a view of Santorini from the cruise ship, where the cruise ship is parked. So you take the boat over to the side, and you can see this curvy road that leads to the top, and then you see all the white buildings at the top. So I'm going to tell you about our trip up to the top of Santorini. You can take the curvy road with donkeys up to the top, or you can take a gondola ride up to the top, like a ski lift up to the top. Okay, so our adventure started by riding the donkeys to the top of Santorini, which is a very popular thing for tourists to do. And as you can see here in this picture, I'm quite happy. I'm wearing white shorts and flip-flops, which is going to be an important part of the story for the return trip down the mountain. But come to find out, riding the donkeys to the top is actually a dangerous thing to do. It's really popular. They do it in the movie like Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. Like, it's in movies and it makes it seem like this really happy, fun, cool, unique thing to do. But the local people think that it's a filthy thing to do because apparently the donkeys have fleas and they're dirty. But not just that, they feed the donkeys at the top of the hill. So they race up to the top. And sadly, shortly after this trip we were on, someone's donkey bumped the other person and they fell over the edge and did not survive. Very, very sad. So you would think they would not run the donkeys anymore, but I believe they still do. So beware, that is a risky thing to do. Here's another picture. You can see the cruise ship out in the distance, and what's behind it, that peak that looks like a mountain sticking up out of the ocean, is the volcano. So another excursion you can do here if you visit Santorini is you can snorkel around the volcano, and I'm not sure if it's still active or not. I can't remember, but that's kind of a unique thing. Oh, I guess I better back up to the donkey story then. So after we made it to the top, we had some time to look around for a couple hours, and then we were all supposed to meet back on the cruise ship at a certain time. And we're supposed to round up the students, and they're supposed to meet us. Well, some of the students did not show up on time. And so the cruise ship said that they would leave without us if we didn't get there. So by the time we rounded up the high school students and had to get back on the cruise ship, the gondola, like the ski lift, was closed. So the only way to get back to the cruise ship was to walk down the hill that the donkeys come up. And the donkeys get fed at the top of the hill. So they poop the whole way up. Now, mind you, it is steep. And I just would like to go back to show you this picture of see how steep it is up to the top. So when you are walking down that hill in flip-flops and white shorts, you are going to slip and fall in donkey poop, which is exactly what happened to me. And I was not smiling at the end of the trip down the mountain. But anyway, we made it back to the cruise ship on time, but it was quite an adventure, I would say. And lastly, the last stop on our cruise, we are going to visit the Temple to Poseidon, which is kind of a hard place to get to, a little island all on its own. And you see a lone olive tree here, which is ironic because if you know the myth of Athena versus Poseidon when it came to naming the city of Athens, it was a contest between the two. But here is Poseidon's own temple. And if you were to walk out to the far ledge, it would be a steep drop off. And there below it is the ocean where the waves crash up below the Temple to Poseidon, who is, of course, the god of the sea. So that's going to wrap up our trip to Greece. End with this picture of Santorini with the Greek flag flying high. It is a beautiful place to visit, and I hope someday you get to go there yourself. Although there was one story I really wanted to tell you, so you can exit the video now, but I will tell you one last story. When we were in the city of Athens, I said that at the time, their economy was really struggling, and there was a lot of people who were out of work and were they were desperate for money. So we had this tour bus that we were on, and we were loading up the tour bus in the morning to head out on an excursion. And I climbed on the tour bus, and I was looking out the window, and I saw this guy. No, that's not what happened. I climbed on the tour bus, and some students who were already on the bus said, "Mrs. Umphrey, this guy just stole a suitcase off our bus and he's running down the street." And I don't know, I didn't take a second to think. I got off the bus and started chasing after this stranger who was wearing a business suit. running away with a stolen suitcase, which is kind of a dangerous thing to do, actually. Not very smart. So I guess the kids went and got my husband and like the bus driver. And before I knew it, my husband and the bus driver came barreling past me, chasing down the guy with the stolen suitcase. And he dropped the suitcase and ducked into this like corner alley and tried to just pretend that he was on his phone like nothing had happened. And they confronted him, and the bus driver was like yelling at him in Greek, probably cursing him. I don't know. But anyway, we got the suitcase back. It turned out it was a suitcase that belonged to one of the girls on our trip, one of the students, and had nothing of value in it. But just goes to show you that, some people were so desperate they were willing to steal a suitcase, a random person's suitcase off of a bus in hopes that they might find something valuable inside. So I should have warned you at the beginning of the trip. Beware, keep your belongings close to you. We did have several students pickpocketed on the trip. One student, stupidly put cash in the front pocket of their suitcase. That was stolen. And then another student had their like a really nice camera with a big lens on it. They put it down by their feet to eat a sandwich, and it was swiped from underneath them. So keep your belongings tucked close to you next time you go on an overseas adventure. All right, that's it for our tour of Greece. I hope you enjoyed. Goodbye.